Hello, hello, hello. My name is Sable. Welcome back to Full Out Healing Show and Podcast. Today, this is episode number 5. And this is day 8 of 100 Days of Truth. Okay, so this episode, I'm going to talk about another idea. And as I have with previous episodes, I'm going to talk about how I relate to this this topic or idea in the past, present, and future. So I'll talk about what I thought and felt about it, the narratives and beliefs that I used to have, what those things are today, and then get to my future hopes and desires, okay? So the title of this episode is I didn't know that humor at my expense was just cruelty. Okay? So, in the past, particularly in the context of the relationship, there were a lot of times where my ex-wife would say things that I guess were supposed to be funny, but I didn't get the joke. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't get this joke. And even the next step further of like what I felt was like, not only do I get this joke, but it kind of stings. Like, ouch, that hurt a little bit. But then within the context of a relationship where there was like volatility and like things could escalate at any time, and there was just like this unpredictability of like what could lead to violence, it also made me stressed. Like, I felt stressed that I didn't get the joke and was focused on that stress because I was to some degree preoccupied with the consequence of what that could lead to. Like, because I didn't get the joke, could this potentially lead to something that comes up like later tonight or 3 days from now, like where all of a sudden from left field, like I know I'm not going to sleep tonight because of this joke that I missed, you know? And so all of these thoughts and feelings ended up like I was just focused on, I was really just like worried and preoccupied with like not getting the joke because what it meant, how she experienced that. Like and because the narrative that existed at the time within the relationship was I am harmful to her and depriving her for not getting her jokes. I'm depriving her of an audience. I'm depriving her of feeling seen and recognized and appreciated for who she is. And that was like, it was like, which sounds wild, but like it was a real thing that it was, you know, this was another narrative. This was a defect that I had to atone for because like I did not get her jokes. And it caused a lot of tension because of like the sadness it created for her that I just didn't get. It was like I didn't get her, I didn't see her, all of that stuff. And then the beliefs that I held at the time was, you know, she just had like a really smart, dry, witty sense of humor. And not only that, like, because I didn't get it, because I didn't get the joke, like I was overreacting, and which was a dangerous thing. And because I was overreacting, even speaking about my hurt feelings wasn't even something that was on the table to be entertained, because remember, one of the narratives is like, this is something I need to atone for. So forget, like, my hurt feelings were way, they weren't even like on the table for discussion, right? Because me not getting the joke created this huge, terrible harm. And so now, fast forward to today, How I think, feel, and relate to this has transformed. Like, I now, like, when I think about this, I now know there was no joke, just taunting, like, straight up. Like, of course I didn't laugh. Like, who laughs when they're being, like, kind of poked at or taunted, you know? I also now understand, like, I look back on this and I think that, wow, jokes that are, I'll say jokes that are about my deepest insecurities, because that's the other thing. The jokes weren't just off of like, oh, you don't get this thing off of TV. They were jokes about me. And I now know that jokes about my deepest insecurities from a person that like I trusted and was choosing to share a life with, that's just cruel. Like, straight up. That's like, in the context of of safety, there are some things, joking about deep insecurities is just like not cool. And, you know, it could be appropriate if we're at a roast and it's something everybody knows, but do you like boo up and shack up with, someone who you expect to roast you all the time without your consent? No, like, that's not okay. And I understand that now. But something else that I also understand is that the whole, like, I guess, like, the structure and the framework of it being a joke that I didn't get, it was really, really effective at, like, silencing my justified hurt. Like, I felt justifiably hurt, and but it was very effective at silencing. Like, I felt like it effectively silenced me and expressing my hurt, or even accessing my hurt, because I was just so preoccupied with, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm something I had to, you know, atone for. And it also, like, effectively kind of squashed any confidence that I had to, like, hold her accountable to hurting my feelings. You know, like, if you're, just think about it, if you're in atonement, that's not a position of asking. It's not whenever I did, it was like, oh, you're deflecting, oh, you're not taking responsibility. It's a very easy setup, you know? And so now it's like, I recognize those things weren't jokes. I recognize that it wasn't cruel. And I also recognize that as a mechanism, how it functioned in, like, distancing myself from my own hurt, and also, like, making the possibility that I express and a feeling that it was uncomfortable for her to withstand or bear witness to, and hold her accountable for it, made that, like, so remote of a possibility. When I think today, like, when I think about how I feel about it, I honestly feel sad for the me that I feel sad for the me that didn't feel like her feelings were enough. And I feel sad for the me that felt like her feelings weren't really enough proof or evidence to make a decision. And I just, like, wanna hug that me. Yeah, I just feel sad thinking about that. And also with that sadness, I also feel a lot of peace, because I now know, you know, like, the power of now knowing is that I get to comfort that version of me, and I get to speak to her about, and give her space to acknowledge, like, her hurt feelings. I get to, you know, because I know now, like, I can also, how do I want to say this? I can also hold space for her, that version of me that needs space to like process the shame around it. Cause I think as I was starting to realize this, I felt like embarrassed. I felt embarrassed for not knowing better. And whenever I noticed that feeling, I now know it's an opportunity to really step in and hold some compassion and add some context that version of me didn't have access to at the time. It's like when I noticed that feeling and it's like, oh, this is something to heal, because there is nothing to be embarrassed about. Like the embarrassment is coming from a shame and a judgment place, and it's totally diminishing the things I said and did that help keep me alive, which deserves to be respected, because I am alive and I'm here to share this story with you. So, and every time I do that with myself, for myself, it just feels, I'm able to, just stand in the fullness of who I am. My back is a little bit straighter, and it helps me be more unapologetically me in the present. Because there's a lot, it's very easy to catch a lot of shame in these streets for this type of lived experience. And I'm in a place where I think the shame, similar to the, like, oh, you not getting a joke is something you need to atone for, is a tactic that it functions as a tactic that is very silencing and very much disconnects, I think, survivors from the power to hold society, hold people hold them accountable to this bullshit. It's disarming the most powerful person in the room. That's what I think. And so, every time I can do that for myself, I could just, get a little bit more of my own power back. The narratives I understand and hold to be true now are, no one is entitled to anything at the expense of my hurt feelings. Period. End of discussion. I don't care. I give no fucks about what you or whomever meant, or what the intention was, or da-da-da-da-da. My hurt feelings matter. And that's enough evidence and data for me to make an informed decision. And that's what it is, like, point blank period. People have a right to make a choice for themselves, to protect themselves, to do whatever, to bring themselves to a different place based off of the harm they've experienced. Like, that's another wild thing to me, is like, I feel like in our society, we have this reaction to people, when people, say or do fucked up things, and there's an uproar, and then the person's reaction, a very common response, is like, man, I can't even say this anymore. Sure, you can say it. You can say and do whatever the hell you want. And you are not entitled to that without, you're part of this universe and society. Sure, you can say and do whatever you want, and people can react to it however they choose. And it's almost as if people feel entitled to saying and doing whatever they want without consequence. And that's what I think the big fuss is about. It's like, like you won't even let me have a good time. Like you won't even let me laugh about this thing I did. And it's like, sure, you can laugh. Just know I'm pissed. Or like, sure, that hurt. Like, you know? And so it's just interesting. It's giving a very, you know, you're ruining my fun because like you won't let me, because you're bothering me with your hurt feelings. That's the energy of it. And it's like, I think there's like an entitlement to consequence-free action. And for a very long time in our society, it was possible for people to cause harm and distance themselves from the impact of that harm. And I think we're at a time where that's increasingly hard to do, which is good. But that was like a whole tangent. Another narrative that I carry now is that I know that I was not wrong and I did not create harm. I wasn't. Not getting a joke at my expense is not creating harm, which is in line with what I was saying. Like, she was never entitled to me as an audience, an adoring audience that no matter what, no. Like, I wasn't wrong for not getting it because there was not a joke to get. And I did not create harm. I experienced harm, and I was in a context where it was unsafe for me to speak to that harm. That is harmful. And another thing I understand now is like, she was mean to me, like a lot, and used distortion to avoid accountability. And that's just like a fact. Like, I don't have an energy about it. It's just important for me to understand that this was true. 'Cause it cuts through all of it just like cuts through all of the judgments that I carry towards myself and all the confusion and conglomeration of it all. What I believe and understand now, I do have a smart sense of humor, and I have been, and I always have. I have such good friends that I deeply love. When I spend time with them, I never leave without my cheeks hurting, and that has been true for over 20 years. And whenever I meet people, you know, depending on like the context and the space, like people think I'm funny. And when I experienced this relationship thinking something was wrong with me, why didn't I get the joke and da-da-da-da-da. But I, you know, lost touch with the fact that I am a funny bitch. So yeah, that is something I now believe and understand. I also believe there was nothing to get because the jokes weren't funny because they weren't jokes and it was just mean. And I was not overreacting. I was hurt, and that was appropriate. And because like even though overreacting, it just wasn't, I wasn't overreacting, which kind of connects to the previous episode of like, you know, I had appropriate reactions to inappropriate behavior. For the future, I hope for a future where it is there is laughter that does not require hurt. I hope that for me, for you, for everybody. And which is to say, like, I can take a joke, y'all. Like, I love Drag Race. I love it when the girls read each other. I love a roast. Like, I like comedy. And there's a difference between like comedy and harm. There just is, you know? And I also, I I also desire for myself and then for any survivors out there. I hope that it's really my deep desire to continue to deepen my self-trust and to just be in tune with my feelings and always do like a context check, right? If I'm ever questioning, does this make sense? Is this right? Is this appropriate? My desire is that like I do the context check within myself. And if I am still searching beyond that, I desire that I have, people who I love and whom I trust and respect because not because they tell me what to think, but because they reflect back to me what I already know, right? That's what I desire. And, I'm grateful that I have that today. And so I'm just really hoping that that continues to be true. And I think it will be. The universe is on my side. It's impossible to acknowledge that, but it is. So yeah, that is episode 5 in the books. Woohoo! Thanks for joining me on this journey. For episode 5, I didn't know that humor at my expense was just cruelty. It's just cruelty, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.